We're competing with examinations at the end of term and also with the warmest day of the year so far, and more people out in the sun, I think, getting over the snow. But in any case, if you would like to come toward the front, it would facilitate our communication a bit. I'm Father David Hollenbach, and I'm the director of the Center for Human Rights and International Justice here at Boston College. And the International Justice, the Human Rights and Justice Center has had an ongoing relationship that we're very proud of with the Jesuit Refugee Service. We have sponsored several conferences here and published a few books in collaboration with them. And I've also been very privileged to spend some time with JRS staff in East Africa, both in Nairobi, Kenya, and also in South Sudan. And so having with us this afternoon several representatives of Jesuit Refugee Service, two who are going to be our principal speakers, is a real privilege for our center. So we really want to welcome all of those of you who are from JRS, from the office in Washington, from Syria and the Middle East, to be with us this afternoon. I would say just a few words about the overall presentation of what we're going to hear about today, and then I would like to introduce Armando Borja, who is the Regional Director of Jesuit Refugee Service for the United States, and he'll say a few words too to get us started off. But we're going to be talking today about the response of the Jesuit Refugee Service to the crisis in Syria and the Middle East and the regions surrounding Syria. As you know, this is an extraordinarily grave crisis, probably the most severe humanitarian and displacement crisis in the world today, for sure. Just as of last year, 2014, the most recent official estimate coming from the United Nations on this says that of Syria's 22 million people, 10.8 million are in need of humanitarian assistance. That's almost half of the population, including 6.5 million internally displaced people and approximately 3 million plus refugees. So somewhere in the vicinity of a third of the population of the whole country has been driven from their homes and turned into displaced people, a very severe crisis. And the Jesuit Refugee Service in the Middle East and in Syria in particular is in the midst of attempting to respond to the severe needs of these displaced people. Jesuit Refugee Service, which you may not know, is a major work of the Jesuit Order of the Society of Jesus. We're better known, we Jesuits, for our educational work at places like Boston College here on this very campus. But JRS is a major ministry of the Jesuit Order. It has a staff of over 1,400 people operating in 50 countries around the world and serving somewhere around 900,000 people as of the end of last year. So it's an organization that is responding to needs in many parts of the world, and it's operating in Syria and the surrounding parts of the Middle East in a very important way. The two people who are going to address us primarily this afternoon are Father Michael Zammit and Father Nawras Sammour. They're going to tell us about the challenges of responding to the displaced people of Syria and those in the surrounding region where so many vulnerable people need assistance. Father Michael Zammit is the Regional Director for Jesuit Refugee Service for the Middle East and North Africa. And Father Nawras Sammour is the National Director of Jesuit Refugee Service in Syria itself. They are going to tell us about the Syrians who risk so much to help other Syrians who are internally displaced within their country. They're going to tell us about those countries in the surrounding region that have so generously received huge numbers of refugees. In Lebanon, for example, somewhere over 25% of the total number of people inside the borders of Lebanon are Syrian refugees. We worry about a small number of migrants in the United States. Imagine where we would be if a fourth of our population were refugees. It would be a different scene altogether, and that's the scene in Lebanon. So I would going to welcome them in a moment, but before welcoming them, I'd like to invite Amanda Borja, the director of JRS here in the United States, to say a few words.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you all. It's really a pleasure to be here at Boston College, a university that has been working with Jesuit Refugee Service in many different ways. Periodically travel to Africa, and from time to time I go to the Kakuma refugee camp in northern Kenya, and I find students or graduates from the School of Social Work working, and likewise I recently visited Bangkok, and there were two alumni, or two students who recently had graduated from social work again, and frankly I just want to take this opportunity to thank Boston College for its generous support over so many years, and for after hearing that we had these two visitors opening up the school to allow us the opportunity to come and bring the message of hope and the message of what JRS is doing precisely to tend to the needs of the most vulnerable of those who are displaced in Syria. So with your introduction, I just want to tell you the mission of JRS is to accompany, and we will be hearing that a little later in the presentations, serve and advocate for the rights of those who are refugees or displaced because of conflict. So thank you so much for having us this afternoon. Very good.
So may I invite either Brother Michael come forward and introduce what you were going to tell us about, and then when you are finished you can invite Nawras to come forward as well. So thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. And I'd like to say how pleased I am to be here amongst you this afternoon. The Syrian crisis began over 4 years ago. There are now 3,962,836 Syrian refugees. These are current official UN figures. When a national leaves his country to go to another country, he is termed a refugee. If he moves from his city, his village or his town to another part of the country, he's termed an IDP, internally displaced person. So we're talking about almost 4 million refugees, and predicted for the end of 2015 will be about 4.3 million. Internally displaced, of these refugees, 1,200,000 almost are in Lebanon, 1.7 million in Turkey, 630,000 in Jordan, 246,000 in Iraq, and 133,000 in Egypt. These are the numbers of people who are officially registered, and especially for Lebanon, we have to add on the amount of people who do not want to be registered as refugees, probably because they are afraid of retaliation once they go back to their country. We estimate at least another 200,000, 300,000 in Lebanon alone. So that would push the figures of refugees in Lebanon up to 1.5 million, anything between 1.5 million to 1.7 million. For a country with 4.5 million Lebanese inhabitants, that's a lot of people. I think if you have to put it into American standards, you'll be talking about 80 million, 90 million here in the US. It is a very, very major problem. And due to the Lebanese political situation, it is becoming totally unstable in Lebanon. Population of Syria in 2014, including refugees, was about 22 million. So UN figures showed 12.2 million people in need. There are also 7.6 million IDPs. We talk about 400,000 Syrians who are besieged, who cannot leave the area in which they are living, and Syrians out of humanitarian needs or reach in 2014 were about 3 million. We are in a crisis that the world has not seen easily since the Second World War. JRS operates in the following countries: Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, and Turkey. In Syria we have 3 major centers, the cities of Damascus, Homs, and Aleppo. But from these centers we go out into the countryside, especially from our center in Damascus. We are active south of Damascus. We are also active on the coast, starting from Damascus. In Lebanon we would have activities in Beirut, Jubail, which is a city about 40 kilometers north of Beirut, and we're also present in the Bekaa Valley. The Bekaa Valley is just on the frontier with Syria, and the school we run over there is about 3 kilometers from the frontier, and it is to be considered an area in which there is some danger. In Jordan, we are present in Amman and Erbil. Erbil is a city which is close to the Syrian border. In Iraq, Erbil, Ankara, and Ozal. Erbil would be the capital of the Kurdish Republic. Now, I know that we are mainly talking about Syrian refugees, but we mustn't forget the internally placed Iraqi people. We have at least 1.5 million internally placed following the advances of Islamic State last summer. So these people working within Erbil will not be Syrian refugees, they will be Iraqi internally displaced. In Turkey we are in Ankara and Kirikale. So on a map, we can situate places like this. Up in Turkey, Ankara next to the Kirikale, about 40 kilometers away. Right on the right part of the map you have Erbil, that will be in Iraq. It's more difficult to situate the different places on the left because of the size. You have Aleppo to the north. Then if you remain on the right side of the map in Syria, you have Homs and way back to Damascus. Jordan will be very, very far down with Amman and Erbil. Lebanon, you can't really make out the different centers on the map. JRS offers 4 different types of services. We have emergency relief, distribution of food and non-food items, healthcare support with the clinics, the dispensary and referrals. That means we help people to get healthcare in hospitals. Education and psychosocial activities with the short-term, but also long-term goals, and home visits. Now, if you talk about the number of people who have been served, people served in 2014 is 498,000. 285,000 in Syria, 200,000 in Turkey, almost 4,000 in Lebanon, 6,000 in Jordan, and 784 in Iraq. The number in Iraq is very, very modest because we're just starting out in Iraq. When I say Turkey, they're mainly Syrians on the frontier between close to Syria, on the side of Turkey close to the frontier with Syria. Now if we cut that down, you have on this chart, the number of people in different countries with education and psychosocial support, that would be about 22,000. Non-food item distributions would be 195,000, food security 303,000, healthcare 14,000, for this total of 498,000. if you notice, most of our beneficiaries would be for emergency aid. That would be the NFI, food security and healthcare. That only is about 36,000 people served in the other services. Now, JRS does not usually work in emergency, but we do work in emergency in the Syria situation. This is mainly because in the beginning, 4 years ago, when things started, JRS was one of the few NGOs actually present and working in Syria. We were working in Aleppo in the north. We were working with Iraqi refugees. That was the major crisis at the time. And then you had the beginning of the Syrian crisis. Thousands and thousands of people moving, being displaced. And it was then felt that we just had to answer to the need. So we went into this emergency work, which is the distribution of food, of clothing, and also of health care. So this is emergency relief, food support, food baskets and cooked food, health care, and mattresses, blankets, clothing, shoes, household utensils, hygiene kits. When a person leaves his house and goes somewhere else, he doesn't have the time or the energy to take with him a lot of things. Amongst the things we definitely not have is cooking equipment. That is why it is considered necessary to be able to provide hot meals. And we do have 2 field kitchens, one in Aleppo and one in south of Damascus. The one in Aleppo gives about 6,000 hot meals a day. At certain times, the number went up to 18,000, if I'm not mistaken, Nawras.
20,000.
20,000.
Now today it's 9,000.
Now it's 9,000, so sorry, my figures are a bit out. The one in south of Damascus is 6,000. Over there we mainly work with cooking food in a kitchen and distributing it to partners who then will distribute it themselves. And I visited these food kitchens, and I can say that seeing the people line up with buckets and containers to take home food is really something which is impressive. And when you go to their houses and see what their house is, in the south of Damascus and Sahnaya, many people are living in unfinished homes. People in Syria and in Lebanon like building a house, but just inhabiting the part that they actually need, and leave the rest of the house, maybe 3 floors or 4 floors, with just the walls. And then they move in, they'll furnish it as the need is, and they'll furnish it when they have money. So these uninhabited houses with just concrete walls, with 1 toilet for all the flat, where you'd have maybe 5 families living. Each room might have maybe 8 to 10 people living. You have 1 toilet which is just a hole in the floor. There's nothing else. There's no water in these places. There are no windows. You'll have a plastic sheet covering the window. If they're lucky, they'd have some blankets and mattresses that they'd have on the floor. And that's the way they live. So providing a hot meal, 1 hot meal every day, is, I believe, something which is absolutely necessary. Another problem we don't really think about is to provide food, you need cooking gas or you need electricity. Now it's extremely difficult to find gas in Syria. Very, very expensive if you do find it. And electricity, when I was in Aleppo in December, people were very, very happy because rationing had gone up from 2 hours electricity a day to 3 hours a day. Now, if we have 1 hour's electricity cut a day, we think it's the end of the world. In Aleppo, they have 3 hours electricity a day, and I think there are over 1 million people living in Aleppo still. Nawras?
Something like 1.5 on the western side.
Something like 1.5 million on 2 hours electricity a day. 2 hours electricity a day means if you're lucky you can get in 1 washing load. You definitely can't work a fridge. So people are living really day to day. You're going to buy the things you need for the day, get them back, cook them if you can. They are work situations, living situations, which are completely unacceptable in 2015. Yet, over 1.4 million people live in those conditions. Now, these last 3 days, the fighting has gone up again. We've been having bombings. We've had people we know have lost their lives. A Jesuit died. So, even on the security situation, the situation is very, very bad. Over here we have a photograph of a non-food item distribution, that could be clothes or other thing. One thing which is very important when you're distributing is to treat the person that you are distributing to as a human being, as somebody of importance. You are not a person who's coming up from high, just giving him something, take it or leave it. I was highly impressed with what I saw in Aleppo, another center where we're distributing NFIs. We were distributing shoes, children's shoes. And there was a whole discussion between the person who was offering the shoes and the woman who was coming in for the shoes about the size of the shoes, the quality of the shoes, the color of the shoes. And the woman wasn't very happy with what was being offered. So the person went and got another model and showed her the other model. There was a 10-minute discussion on the use and the type of shoe the woman would be taking. I would have thought it would have been in a shop on High Street and not in a place which you are giving out free material. That was really wonderful. So that's an idea of families coming in to get the food in the food kitchens. They come in with these big pails, because a family is usually at least 6 people. So the people come in with a card. You've had at the beginning a home visit. So they've had a team of people going to see where the people are living, what their needs are, seeing if they qualify for a free cooked meal, and how many people will have this free cooked meal. Then they'd come to the kitchen with this card, and this card would have 4 people, 6 people, 8 people, and according to the number of people on the card, they get the number of portions that they have the right to. Food baskets will be giving out food. Over there it is considered that the people can themselves cook the food. Now you might think that it is only internally displaced people who need help in Syria. That is not really the case. Everybody needs help in Syria today. First of all, people have had jobs. Most of them do not have jobs anymore. Secondly, if you still have a job, you cannot live on the salary you're earning. So everybody needs help in Syria, and everybody should be served. The problem is that World Food Programs are cutting down on what they distribute. The problem is that they are also distributing things that people do not like very much. The food baskets prepared by the World Food Program in Aleppo are not exactly what the people like. The rice isn't the right quality rice. There isn't any tuna. They're great as far as rations and calorific quantity. They're absolutely what you need. But they do not take into consideration the cultural aspect. And people are used to eating certain type of food. They do not want to eat other types of food. So that is also part of why it is interesting that we distribute food. Because we take into account local conditions and we can cater better to what the people want and actually want to eat. That's a photograph of the Aleppo food kitchen. You can see the size of the, what do you call those? Of the cooking pots we use. In Aleppo, we're also running a dispensary, a clinic. We are receiving, now as you correct me on this, something like 3,000 people a month.
Something like 120 person.
120 people daily. I think the percentage is something like 3,000 people a month, or even more than that. Now, when we say receive people, that means the people will come in, the person will come in, he's got a number, he's got a rendezvous, he'll wait until he's called in, sit down in a waiting room, things that you don't really see in Syria anymore. We're seen by a group of young doctors, very generous people, who are there helping out. They will see if he needs any analysis to be done. We'll send them out to laboratories for the analysis that we pay for. They come back a second time for a visit with the analysis. They'll be seen again by the doctor, who will then prescribe medication, if they need medication, and they will be given that medication. And very often there's a third visit a week or so later to see everything is fine. That is counted as one person. So 3,000 people a month, 3,500 people a month is really a considerable amount of work. And it is necessary because in Syria, in Aleppo, there are less and less hospitals that are working. That's also the clinic in Aleppo. We also distribute food in Lebanon. JRS is mostly known for its work with education and with psychosocial activities. In Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan, we have remedial lessons for students enrolled in public schools. We have an accelerated learning program in Lebanon. The idea is that after 6 months or so of this accelerated learning program, a child will be able to enter a Lebanese primary school or a Lebanese government school. The system doesn't work out very well because Lebanon schools do not accept the Syrian children they should be accepting. It's a question of place, mainly. And why do they need an ALP system? Because in Lebanon, teaching is in French and in English, much more than in Arabic. While in Syria, teaching will be done in Arabic. So you need a period in which the child gets used to getting to learn another language. So you might say that we're not really arriving at the objective wanted. But on the other hand, we have children who are at school, who are out of the streets, who are happy to be with other people and happy to be learning. Isn't that in itself not an objective that is really worthwhile and worthwhile doing? So we have life skill classes in Syria and Jordan. This is quite an interesting program that is done in other provinces as well, other regions as well of JRS. It's JCHEM, Tertiary Online Education. It's a program organized especially with links to the Jesuits in the US. I think the diplomas given are given by Regis University, but I know that there are other universities working also on this program. I know that Georgia has something to do with it, and I wouldn't be surprised if there is something as well in BC with the students. The American universities come in for the development of the programs, for official recognition, for the diploma, but they're also very important for the academic work that is put in by teachers, but especially by students, because some of the programs require an American student as a tutor. And there is tutoring from American students to the refugee student. And it's a wonderful program, and I would invite you all to look at their very good website. If you just put in JCHEM in Google, you'll be directed to it immediately. We do literacy classes in Arabic and English for adults in Jordan, and Turkish and English literacy for refugee adults and children in Turkey. So these are some photographs that illustrate this work. JCHEM in Amman, Jordan. In Lebanon, the ALP for Syrian children, mainly primary school. Turkish lessons for refugee children in Turkey. And our third activity will be psychosocial support. These will include home visits to assess needs and accompany people, social gatherings to recreate community networks, referrals to other NGOs and other services, counseling, handicrafts, theatre, music, and support. This is important not only for the refugees, the Syrian refugees in Syria and outside of Syria, not only important for the Iraqis and Erbil, but we tend to forget that there are many other refugees as well in these countries. You have in Lebanon, Kurds and others, but you have also in Amman, in Turkey, in Jordan, you would have people from Sudan, from the Darfur region, and from as well Eritrea, and the countries over there in Africa. Now these refugees are completely forgotten. nobody really cares for them, and we consider that JRS has a duty towards them, and that is why we have, especially in Amman, a school and a community center for them. So Syria Damascus Children's Activities. In Ankara, home visits to refugees, and home visits to refugees in Jordan, Erbil, that's the north, and in Erbil, home visits to IDPs. Do you see the places people live in Jordan? They have prefabs. We could call them 3-star refugee buildings. It's a prefabricated building of maybe 3 meters by 2, in which a whole family lives. But it's better than a tent. And you're not in the mud when it rains. So basically, how does JRS work? And I'm concluding on this. We have strong teams comprised of volunteers and staff, all from different nationalities, faith, political and socio-economic backgrounds. They are from the local community. So they are committed to the local community. They have a deeper insight into local needs, so we can target better the programs that we have, and we can target better what the people really need. And working through local networks with community ties, churches, mosques, secular institutions within Syria, the Syrian-led peasants, and other local NGOs that have access to community needs. And most of our workers, especially in Syria, are refugees themselves. In Syria, we employ some 500 people. There are 500 people that would have left, looking for livelihood outside. So another part of the program that we have, even though it is not a declared part of the program, is offering work for people so that people can actually live and stay where they are. Thank you very much.
Said that you should invite everybody before.
No.
Good evening, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really honored to be with you tonight and to get this opportunity to express myself first. You know, the most frustrating thing today for Syrian people, the majority of Syrians, is being speechless, voiceless. And I get this opportunity to speak with you tonight, and this is a privilege. So, it's really complicated and complex, the situation in Syria today. And today I hope to express certain things that have been imposed on us as Syrians today. I wish to relate to you some of the experiences I have had and to give you a glimpse inside Syria. I have tried, and I still trying, and I try always, with the help of many other Syrians. We talked about something like 500 collaborators, Muslims and Christians. Thanks to them, I try to give a good answer in the spirit of Christ to the following questions. My question is, how can we hold on? How can we hold on? That is to say, how can we keep our human dignity in such dehumanizing situation? Dehumanizing circumstances. How can we be the church from a position of weakness, of lack of resources, and faced with the proximity of death daily? So I do not propose to give the Christian answer. It's my answer. It's one answer. My answer. My opinion. It shows one way of living among others. So I don't pretend to give the Christian answer. So you know the troubles in Syria started in March 2011 which is, we run now the 5th year of conflict. It started with, some demonstrations, very pacific demonstrations, I have to say that, but today it's very, very difficult work, very difficult work. The crisis has changed everything in Syria. Fear, anxiety, insecurity, and suffering are the common lot of all Syrians. Nobody in Syria is, let's say, protected of that. All Syrians suffer today. All Syrians. We can no longer talk of Syria as a place of tranquility. It's a country of violence today. It's a divided country. It's a country of violence and of atrocities, unfortunately. So we talked about the numbers, in terms of numbers, about those who are displaced. But displacement is not only a matter, I have to add that, a matter of going from a city to another city, from a town to another town. Sometimes only a matter of 100 displacement. We talk about Yarmouk camp, where ISIS got last week, for example, displacement. Those who are lucky to leave Yarmouk today, they are welcomed, they are in shelter in Tadamon, which is 100 meters from the Yarmouk camp. So displacement, it's not only traveling, it's sometimes a matter of 100 meters. Families of our fellow Jesuits who leave their own houses 3 days ago, they left from one area of a neighborhood called Slemaniye to another area, which is something like 300 meters, not more. So displacement is like that. When we are obliged to leave, when we are obliged to leave. So, with all these numbers, let me express myself first as a Christian with that increasing of fundamentalism in Syria. So, the rise of religious radicalism and fundamentalism, it's a part and parcel of this war, for sure. It is clear today that Islamic radical groups like ISIS, Daesh, Nusra, ISIS, which is the Islamic State, Nusra, which is the Al-Qaeda branch in Syria, and like an alliance between different Islamic groups, so-called, for example, the Islamic Front, are pursuing a project of an Islamic State. And the difference between them is a very, very, let's say, small difference. So talking about moderate today in Syria, when I said Islamist, I'm right away doing the difference between Islamic, who's the one who's believer of Islam, and, which is good, and Islamists with that project of being, let's say, reclaiming an Islamic State, which is for us in Syria today, it's a problem. And the difference between those who are radicals and those so-called moderate, I can't see the difference. Let me tell you something, which is, I'm not sarcastic, it's a reality about the difference. There was a huge debate between those who are radicals and those who are so-called moderate about if they get the control of a Shia village by Aleppo, the north of Aleppo, called Az-Zahra or Dubbul, are they going to kill all males? For radicals, we have to kill all males. Or are they going to kill only those who are 16 and above? You see the difference? So, it's a big problem. It's a big problem. As a Christian, is the uncertainty and anxiety of Christian community today, I would say we are not the only community which suffer in Syria. Nobody, absolutely nobody, has the monopoly of suffering and of pain today in Syria. Everybody suffers. But as a Christian, and because of that bad experience in a country, a neighboring country like Iraq, what was happening and what still happens for minorities in Iraq, and in Egypt, for example, and in Lebanon, we are much more afraid, let's say. Anxiety is a part of our life. We are the weakest link in the social fabric today in Syria, as a Christian. Let me give you an example. Politically speaking, last year, in February last year, there was Geneva 2. They tried to get all people together, different groups, and to make them, just dialogue and negotiate about the possibility of having a solution in Syria. Neither from the side of the government, nor from the side of the opposition, Christians have been invited. So, what could be the shape of Syria tomorrow if Christians, they are not contributing for saying what is the Syrian identity today? So I am completely ignored. Not only because of fundamentalism, I told you, from the other side as well. So, for that kind of ignorance, they ignore us, I would say we feel ourselves like completely marginalized, like completely voiceless, and we are the weakest. Another example, if we are talking about the divided Syria today, in the map you see, from one side you have the northeast of Syria, you have what's so-called Kurdistan, Syria, the country of Kurds. On the coastal area you have the Alawite part of Syria. And you have the eastern part of Syria, which is under ISIS and the other Islamic groups. And the southern part of Syria, which with Druze and the Shia. Where are the Christians? They are completely lost. So, just that to say that somehow, in the future Syria, we have to be always the protected of someone, which I wouldn't accept at all. If I have to be protected of someone, that someone should be the law. And that is the basic concept of a modern society. So we lost that. Unfortunately. We lost that. So, in the face of such depressing reality, is there still any place for hope? That was my question. Remember? Is there any place still for hope? From the depth of that darkness that I have just detailed, can we still hope? Can light still penetrate? If I confine myself to realism and rationality, which is my natural tendency, let's say, I learned that from Jesuit, I would say that there is nothing more to be done. Nothing more to be done, unfortunately. So my response would be absolutely negative. Nevertheless, where there is nothing more to be done, everything, absolutely everything, must be redone. And that phrase was said by Ignacio Correa. I didn't invent it. The Jesuit martyr from El Salvador. Where there's nothing to be done, everything, absolutely everything, should be redone. In this moment, my thoughts turn directly to Syria, to her whole suffering population, to the silent majority of her great people. The dark pages of human history shows us that the human spirit suffers the most when it no longer has the proper means to express its ills and its fears. When language is inadequate, when words to describe suffering and the fear cannot be found. So, how can we give a voice to those who have none? How can we protect and encourage good and humanizing initiatives in a country which sees total dehumanization daily? In other words, in Christian words, how can we be the church in such challenging circumstances? My way of envisaging reality and to live is an adventure. The outcome of it neither fixed nor certain. But the gospel instructs us and invites us as Christians to be witness to that freedom which is the Redeemer secured for us, through which we may stake everything on God, and by which we draw the sting of death through voluntary obedience to the love of life, even in the constant presence of death. Here allow me to pay homage to the life and the death of Father Franz van der Bocht, killed last year in Homs, Syria, the first, I hope the last, Jesuit martyr from Syria and in Syria. Martyrdom for France, I would say it wasn't losing life. Completely the opposite. I know France very well. I used to collaborate with him very closely. Martyrdom, I would say, is completely the opposite. It's giving life. It's living daily the full life. That was France. It didn't, I would say, seek death. He tried to be the witness of life despite of all difficult circumstances. And that's a Christian answer. And that's a Christian answer. As a church, we have the historic responsibility, I would say, for the future generation of Syria. That's why we put a lot on education. I mean, if we don't do that, in such circumstances, only distributing, which is the thing which are basic, that's good. But to give future to Syria, and we are responsible for the future of Syrian people as a church, I would say we have to do something and to try to build up on education. When I say education, it's not a matter of giving, lessons. It's about everything. And I could give you tons of examples of being able to build together with people displaced who used to fight each other in the past, and they are in our centers today. They are building up together a new Syria. It's a very small and teeny, just some examples, some people, but it's still a good way for envisaging the future. And it's a Christian answer. In all that I have just said, I do not intend to undertake a political act as a politician. We should recognize that the suffering of the Syrians deserves our interest, deserves our witness to their daily heroism, silent heroism, lost heroism. None of the media talk about that daily life of Syrians. In the media, either about atrocities or about strikes, which is another atrocity according to me. but the daily heroism of Syrians. Kids who lined up, just to get a small container of food. They are sometimes obliged to walk for 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, without shoes, just to get that food. It's a daily heroism. So I'm not pretending that I can resolve the Syrian crisis alone, but together we hope to stand fast in order to find meaning in this crisis. That's a Christian duty, to find meaning, to give meaning. Theology is that, right? To give meaning. And to express our gratitude to all those who have shown us their solidarity and support. You are part of those people who show us solidarity and support, which is precisely what has allowed us to resist falling into despair. Thank you very much.